Hey guys, what's going on? It's Dan Baird with the Rumination Project on episode 6, and tonight we're going to talk about bipolar. And this is a subject that's important to me because I actually am bipolar, and that's something that I was diagnosed with in 2019. So I wanted to have an episode where I talked about it a lot more and went in kind of more in depth. And so I have a guest also um, who also struggles with the same illness that I have, and I'm going to bring her up now. And her name is this is Audrey Roman. Um, you can say hi, Audrey.
Hi, Audrey.
Hi. But I'm glad that she decided to come on because it's nice to have somebody who is younger and has a female perspective to this illness that seems that people be it seem to be misdiagnosed with a lot. And even when I was diagnosed in 2019. Now that I actually can and look back in retrospect, I can see that I had it the whole time, but you just don't know
Mm-hmm.
until you that final diagnosis where you see everything laid out in front of you, and the doctor, tells you that you have bipolar. And
For sure.
when was your diagnosis?
So it's crazy because I had been seeing a therapist from the time I was at least 16.
Uh
I can I can hear my mom listening to the podcast in the other room. Turn
huh.
that down.
Yeah, we got five viewers over here on Facebook. She's still
I'm
listening.
waiting for her to turn it down. There we go. Because I could hear myself talking and it was messing me up. But I started seeing a therapist when I was at least 16, and I wasn't diagnosed until 2021 when I went to eating disorder treatment.
Uh,
Um, we had each patient was given a team of three: a psychiatrist, a therapist, and a dietitian. And it was week two, my psychiatrist. Um, so I'm 25. So I'd been, I was like 20, I was 23 when I was given the diagnosis. I'd been seeing a therapist since I was like 16. But yeah, the psychiatrist was like, I think we need to look into a mood disorder. Like you're giving like really telling signs of a mood disorder. She's like, I'm not sure what quite which one it could be yet, but there's definitely some mood stabilization that needs to happen, which was totally like a didn't see that coming, but it the more I was learning about it and the more I've learned about it,
uh,
makes so much sense. Just with the
yeah,
highs and lows.
yeah. And I mean, I when I was diagnosed with it too, I didn't really understand it either. I had actually been diagnosed with general anxiety, depression, everything else besides that since I was 10 years old when I started having behavior issues,
Mhm.
and they started putting me on prescriptions for stuff, and that eventually just didn't work over time. And like everybody else who struggles, we take a prescription, and 6 months later, it stops, being effective, and we're looking for that next thing that can help us.
Mhm.
And I'm sure you had the same struggle.
Well, I had been on um Effexor. That was the prescription my primary doctor gave to me for depression and anxiety when I
Uh,
was 20. And then when I went to treatment, they upped it and upped it and upped it um, to the point where, like, I was over medicated. Like, I probably was a functioning human for a total of, I don't know, maybe 4 hours a day.
yeah,
So I I wanted to get off of the I've been wanting to get off of the medication for at least 2 years. I've been out of treatment for 2 years. And I've been steadily lowering my dose. and only taking the medication because of the side effects of not taking it.
Right.
The brain zaps, the nausea, the whatever.
Uh-huh.
It was miserable, but I wanted to get off them. So 2 weeks ago, I finally weaned off and stopped them.
Yeah, it's really hard to do. I mean, I had to use cannabis to do it because it was so bad for me, but I did it in 2020, and um, right when marijuana became legal, that's basically the reason I did it, because I had then access to, marijuana that was a lot, could be specifically used for bipolar or mood
Mm-hmm.
disorders in general. There are cannabis strains out there that do treat them better than others. There's some strains that will make it worse. They'll make you manic. If so, it's really, really good to be educated if you do use cannabis to treat bipolar.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll play. I guess we'll explain a little bit about what bipolar is, because that's what I wanted to do, and I'm gonna show this video. I'll turn that music down, and I see a bunch of people commenting there. Thanks for joining us. I don't know if you can see him, Andrea, or Audrey. Sorry.
Who's Andrea?
I just was looking in the comments. There's a bunch of people there. I'm still learning how to use this too, so I got to learn how to turn the music down.
Oh, I can see the comments now.
Yeah, there's a comment section up there, and then I think there's a private chat, and probably yours, private chat, and then comments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it shows where they're all coming from. They're all from Facebook over here. There's probably some people on Rumble watching, but they never comment or say anything.
From Rumble?
Yeah, it's another platform that we use. It's a lot of podcasts and live videos and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna add this to the stream, and we'll play this, and we'll talk about it.
What is bipolar disorder? The word bipolar means two extremes. For the many millions experiencing bipolar disorder around the world, life is split between two different realities: elation and depression. Although there are many variations of bipolar disorder, let's consider a couple. Type 1 has extreme highs alongside the lows, while Type 2 involves briefer, less extreme periods of elation, interspersed with long periods of depression. For someone seesawing between emotional states, it can feel impossible to find the balance necessary to lead a healthy life. Type 1's extreme highs are known as manic episodes, and they can make a person range from feeling irritable to invincible. But these euphoric episodes exceed ordinary feelings of joy, causing troubling symptoms like racing thoughts, sleeplessness, rapid speech, impulsive actions, and risky behaviors. Without treatment, these episodes become more frequent, intense, and take longer to subside. The depressed phase of bipolar disorder manifests in many ways: a low mood, dwindling interest in hobbies, changes in appetite, feeling worthless or excessively guilty, sleeping either too much or too little, restlessness or slowness, or persistent thoughts of suicide. Worldwide, about 1 to 3% of adults experience the broad range of symptoms that indicate bipolar disorder. Most of those people are functional, contributing members of society, and their lives, choices, and relationships aren't defined by the disorder. But still, for many, the consequences are serious. The illness can undermine educational and
I also wanted to add there that they said 3% of the population struggles. That means that 3 out of 100 people that are walking around have bipolar. A lot of them don't even know it. A lot of them are misdiagnosed, and I think that's important. It could be even higher than that. I don't, but 3% seems to be the number, and I do see it in a lot of people who are misdiagnosed with other illnesses that may have it. And so it's important to get educated, and that's why we're here to talk about this.
professional performance, relationships, financial security, and personal safety. So, what causes bipolar disorder? Researchers think a key player is the brain's intricate wiring. Healthy brains maintain strong connections between neurons, thanks to the brain's continuous efforts to prune itself and remove unused or faulty neural connections. This process is important because our neural pathways serve as a map for everything we do. Using functional magnetic resonance imaging, scientists have discovered that the brain's pruning ability is disrupted in people with bipolar disorder. That means their neurons go haywire and create a network that's impossible to navigate. With only confusing signals as a guide, people with bipolar disorder develop abnormal thoughts and behaviors. Also, psychotic symptoms like disorganized speech and behavior, delusional thoughts, paranoia, and hallucinations can emerge during extreme phases of bipolar disorder. This is attributed to the overabundance of a neurotransmitter called dopamine. But despite these insights, we can't pin bipolar disorder down to a single cause. In reality, it's a complex problem. For example, the brain's amygdala is involved in thinking, long-term memory, and emotional processing. In this brain region, factors as varied as genetics and social trauma may create abnormalities and trigger the symptoms of bipolar disorder. The condition tends to run in families, so we do know that genetics have a lot to do with it. But that doesn't mean there's a single bipolar gene. In fact, the likelihood of developing bipolar disorder is driven by the interactions between many genes, in a complicated recipe we're still trying to understand. The causes are complex, and consequently, diagnosing and living with bipolar disorder is a challenge. Despite this, the disorder is controllable. Certain medications like lithium can help manage risky thoughts and behaviors by stabilizing moods. These mood-stabilizing medications work by decreasing abnormal activity in the brain, thereby strengthening the viable neural connections. Other frequently used medications include antipsychotics, which alter the effects of dopamine, and electroconvulsive therapy, which works like a carefully controlled seizure in the brain, is sometimes used as an emergency treatment. Some bipolar patients reject treatment because they're afraid it will dim their emotions and destroy their creativity. But modern psychiatry is actively trying to avoid that. Today, doctors work with patients on a case-by-case basis to administer a combination of treatments and therapies that allows them to live to their fullest possible potential. And beyond treatment, people with bipolar disorder can benefit from even simpler changes. Those include regular exercise, good sleep habits, and sobriety from drugs and alcohol, not to mention the acceptance and empathy of family and friends. Remember, bipolar disorder is a medical condition, not a person's fault or their whole identity. And it's something that can be controlled through a combination of medical treatments doing their work internally, friends and family fostering acceptance and understanding on the outside, and people with bipolar disorder empowering themselves to find balance in their lives.
It's a pretty awesome video. It explains there's a lot of information in that short amount of video.
Yeah, it does a good job of like a
And
catch-all summary.
yeah, and you could the end there where they were talking about prescriptions. I've actually never taken lithium myself. I've never wanted to. I know people who have taken it who were medically schizophrenic. I know that it gets used for schizophrenia too, but I never went down that path to try lithium. That's a very strong medication, usually used like a last resort.
Yeah, that was never even in
Yeah,
like
I'd
a
rather.
mention to me. And I probably would have said, hell no.
Yeah, I would have rather not taken medication than try that.
Honestly, with the withdrawal detox symptoms that I went through last week, and I'm still like, I'm at a much more manageable physical whatever right now. But if I would have known, like if someone would have told me, hey, you're going to feel like you are towing a line with death, because that's what it felt like, I would have never touched those meds.
It's gonna take months for your brain to, come back to normalcy. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those antidepressants, they change your gut bacteria. Your gut bacteria then connects to your brain, and then it just causes a cascade of other issues that they aren't good for. And that's what the wildest thing is. They sell these prescriptions to treat a depression, but yet they're killing your gut bacteria, which now science is finding out is extremely important to your well-being, especially somebody who suffers from bipolar. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why you see in those videos they talk about why diet is important. And
Someone, Joe said, "What do you mean by towing a line with death?" I was so sick feeling
uh,
that um, getting up from my bed to the bathroom was an extremely hard task. The physical feeling it was like an extreme stomach flu feeling, along with just like I was completely disoriented, um, shakes, sweats, chills, like,
it's actually the same thing I would experience when my medication stopped working. So
mhm,
4 or 6 months into a prescription, I would start experiencing those things because the prescription would stop working. The medication wasn't strong enough to overcome whatever the side effects of it are. And I would experience that a lot. Then I'd go back to my doctor and be like, "This is what it's not working now, and it's actually having negative effects." And that's when change medication. I know what you mean by all those feelings.
yeah, I mean, probably like towing a line with death, like what I said. Was it a
Yeah,
little dramatic? Yes. Was I begging for it to end? Yes. It was, yeah, the physical, but I will say there was a point where I absolutely needed the medication, and I'm not saying medications are bad and you shouldn't use them, anything like that. Like, there was a point where I absolutely needed the medication. Um, I just wish more education would have been offered
right.
with, like,
They
hey, this
never
can
mentioned
happen, this can happen.
they never mentioned the word probiotics. I think adding that to any antidepressant is important because probiotics basically add the bacteria that these depressants are taking away. But not once in the 25 years I've been medicated has a doctor ever said that. It's kind of like, why didn't you just share the most basic information with me? Nobody ever did.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No doctor ever said like, hey, CBD, totally
Yeah.
natural. Thanks to you, I take your CBD supplement and I feel good. Nothing, no side effects. Um,
But it's the CBG that I think has a stronger effect on bipolar because it has such a strong effect on the nervous system and
mhm,
the gut microbe, and then it also has. That's why it also treats ulcers too. If you didn't know that, CBG does treat ulcers.
mhm.
So
Yeah, you've given me a lot of insight, information, education on the holistic approach to. Sorry,
you
there's
having a party over
apparently
there?
a party happening. I didn't get invited,
That's a good laptop.
but
You can pick up all that noise.
but yeah, because there are so many lovely holistic approaches that don't come with the horrendous side effects of medications
Uh-huh.
that medications do. I wish someone would have educated me sooner on them.
Yeah, and I think that's important. Western medicine kind of although I love the doctor that I have now, for primary doctor. She's a very caring doctor. Just um they just aren't taught these things. It's just their training is to prescribe a prescription instead of what naturally can we try to do. But I mean, there are more doctors becoming available like that, but they are more expensive to use.
Mm-hmm.
Holistic doctors. What else are they called? I can't remember the other name that's being used. But I know there's none around. Is there some in Quincy?
A holistic doctor?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I
They,
actually saw a holistic physician when I was competing, when I was doing bikini competitions. I went to a holistic physician, and I think she was in Springfield.
uh,
Um, and it was like food allergy testing and things to help with inflammation. My friend Adrian asked if
oh, okay.
we think doctors know
No, I
these
think that
things.
they're just not. They're taught these things that when they go to school, they're taught certain things, and they're not. They're just ignorant by their own default of their education, and that's the way they're taught school, and they're not really taught Eastern medicine or other holistic approaches to
Right.
get their doctorate degree.
Yeah, I think like doctors, they're in that hospital clinic setting. They know what they know. They research, they study the prescriptions, they don't, I mean, fuck, they've done enough work to get to the physician part, the physician
Yeah,
education to dive into, I mean, holistic versus clinical, two different worlds.
right. If I start talking to CBG to an RN or a doctor, they look at me like they have no idea what I'm talking about. That's
Mm-hmm.
how ignorant they are. I'm like CBG, and I'm like, look at all the stuff it treats, and they're like, huh? They have no idea, and it's
Yeah.
so new to the world CBG, and there's still a lot of studying to do about it. But I believe it's a strong molecule just from using it myself.
Mm-hmm.
A strong cannabinoid, I should say.
Mm-hmm. And you totally like, as of as of when you started treating your bipolar completely holistically, correct?
Yeah, and I started off with cannabis in 2020, and then I started using psychedelic therapy, magic mushrooms in 2021, and that really opened up my mind to holistic approaches that are way beyond anything that we kind of understand right now to treat these mental illnesses. And I actually have a video that will show too that about that new modern approach to treating these medicines that they're to treating these mental illnesses that they're currently researching with psychedelic therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like there was with psychedelic therapy is really good for diving into your trauma, finding out why you are the way you are, and then the CBD kind of like helps regulate your body to stay, in a kind of in a not manic and not depressive zone, but and not have the
Oh
side
yeah.
effects that those antidepressants have. Plus
Mm-hmm.
the plus the CBG and CBD the effects of them go way beyond your mental health. They go through your whole body, so they're just overall just a good choice to add to your diet.
Yeah, I've been taking them for almost a month now. That
And
your CBD, CBG, and the lion's mane.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
the lion's mane is really effective too. Are you reading the comments?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, somebody, Anthony says cannabis helps with all kinds of health issues. Great for
Oh yeah.
PTSD. And Anita. I forgot.
Did you send me a video on how there's like clinical psychiatrists who are like fully their studies. They're doing what's the word? They're doing studies for PTSD and trauma, and it's a totally controlled setting with psychedelic mushrooms. You sent me a video on that, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I share that with a lot of people. Right, I think there's over 40 studies right now with psychedelic mushrooms, and everywhere from they're treating it for eating disorders and mental health disorders to I even saw they were trying to treat it for Lyme disease, which I thought was interesting. So, I think there's probably 100 different uses for magic mushrooms in the body that we'll eventually figure out. And there are a little bit of the dark side because there are pharmaceutical companies now that want to get involved and they want to add their own chemicals onto the magic mushroom. So, say per se they want to put like Ritalin with magic mushroom and put it in like one capsule and then kind of see what it does. And that may be the future of pharmaceutical treatments. Is it'll be like a natural treatment mixed with chemical. And I'm not saying that they won't be more effective because it'll be. I think they should be studied. They should be studied safely and just like everything else is. And maybe they'll find something that maybe even more can be used to treat even more. If it's mixed with something else.
And then, hopefully, if they can mix a holistic with a clinical, hopefully that can lessen side effects. Because I wanted to get off my meds for so long, but not taking them was a horrendous feeling the next day. So then I kept I only took them so I didn't feel like shit. Like I was figuring out how to stabilize my own emotions, like with journaling and exercise, like a healthy relationship with exercise.
Right.
Like the self-work. So deep diving into the self-work is also helpful. Like medications, supplements, they don't fix everything. You have to do so much more work on your whole self.
Right. Yeah, especially I've gone through I've done this all without a therapist for 3 years. I don't recommend doing it this way. It's been hard, and I've lost a lot of friends. I've screwed up a lot of relationships, just because of the manic episodes. I get really angry, so that's something that I've had to try to understand myself. Because a lot of people, they think that somebody has anger issues, and I see somebody who has bipolar, and he's, a lot of society doesn't understand the anger, especially when it comes out of a man, and it's usually manic anger. So it's somebody who may just all of a sudden be really frustrated with life, and they'll take their anger out on you, and that's what the manic anger that I would experience when I had manic episodes.
Oh yeah.
And trying to understand those and like break why I was behaving that way was probably the biggest thing to helping me naturally. And that's why the psychedelics really do help me a lot, because they do help me understand your subconscious part of you, your childhood, and how it all interwebs with your anger and your emotions, which is what
bipolar
is. It's just a lot of ups and downs.
A lot of ups and downs. There was a period in my life where I moved to different states. I moved to different homes. I was like, I didn't have a great relationship with my family, or I would lose friends because I was so up, and then down, and I would get upset. And then I couldn't figure out my emotions, so I ran from them.
Yeah, I understand.
And then being in treatment, when they were like, okay, we have a working diagnosis of a mood disorder. And then I found my psychiatrist here, and he's like, yep, it's a working diagnosis of bipolar. I was like, oh, okay, so this makes sense. I'm not crazy. I'm not a bad person. I'm learning.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why you're having a lot of issues with your body, because you have neurons that are so reliant in your brain that are reliant on that medication. And you cut that chemical off, and now your brain's in a manic, it's detoxing. So you're kind of suffering from that, and it's going to take a while. So But
I've been more down. I haven't been like manic since like then the 2 weeks that I haven't since I've been off of my Effexor and quetiapine. I haven't been manic. I've maybe been I was really sick, and I'm still figuring that out. That sickness has gone a lot better, but I've been crying a lot.
I thought that was just a normal thing of being bipolar. So we have a deep empathy, and even I probably cry a few times a day just watching, because I can feel people. Even watching the news, I can feel that person, and like I was actually them.
Yeah. And honestly, who knows? Maybe with the medication that I was on, my feelings were so numbed from them that I didn't even experience it. Like, I didn't fully feel emotions. So maybe
Yeah,
that's what's like, maybe my body's like, oh, hey, we can feel again.
yeah. Those medications that, as you shared that video with me, and that TED talk, and that lady said that she was scared that the prescriptions would block her ability to be creative, to write, and I was using medication too. I noticed that I wasn't as creative, even close to, as I am now without them. And they do block your brain's ability to do a lot of the things that you can take advantage of for having bipolar, because we have these minds of people who have bipolar. They're really deep empaths. They're usually very intelligent people, but they seem to suffer. And I always wonder why that is the case. Why these people are that way. Maybe it's something else, but I always try to use that creative part of the bipolar to my advantage. That's one of the great things of having bipolar, is the creativity stuff that goes through your head is on another level. But you just have to be able to control it and not turn it into mania or full on psychosis, where you think whatever you're dreaming is actually going to happen, or some crazy idea.
Yeah.
And
I'm looking forward to learning who I am unmedicated.
right, yeah, it's a whole different world, and even for a man, I don't know if you experience the same thing, but even sexually, if you take antidepressants or these medications, they block your ability to even like want to have sex, especially for a man. And I had issues with that in past relationships, where the girl thought it was her, but I'm on these medications that block the ability. They totally erase it, and that's how some of them are more effective, because they actually block that sex drive, which actually bipolar people usually have a very hyper sex drive that not everybody experiences that, but a lot of people who have bipolar do.
Some of my friends, people, acquaintances, just like things I've seen on the internet, different people sharing that their medications do completely block sex drive. So that sucks.
Yeah, that can be really hard for in a relationship if you're dating somebody and not, dealing with the side effects or just having bipolar, but then dealing with that part of. And there's not really another medication they can prescribe to fix that. You basically have to stop taking the prescription if you don't want that to happen.
Well, and it's like, how many medications do you have to pile on top for, like, to fix one thing, to fix it? Okay, let's add a prescription. Let's add a prescription. Let's add a prescription.
Yeah.
It's like, you shouldn't have to keep adding and adding and adding and adding to just be a normal human.
Right. I did have a few other videos. I actually wanted to share. I don't know if you ever saw this, but I wanted to share the bad effects of somebody who has, well, the good and bad effects of somebody who has bipolar. And it's actually a trailer for a movie, but it's really I've seen it a few times. It's a story about Andy Irons. He was actually a world champ surfer who had bipolar, and it actually eventually killed him. But they actually they have a whole video on Amazon, and I'll just show you the preview here. Let me turn this music down. Hopefully they don't get copyrighted, but it doesn't have any music in it. But here, I'll just play the promo.
Yeah.
And let me add that.
My name's Bruce Irons. Andy Irons was my brother. My brother was unorthodox, wild. You never knew what you were gonna get.
Lindy, it's me. I can't deal with this. I'm sick. I'm throwing up in the brain. Hell. I'm gonna try to sleep all day. Love you. Bye.
He said he was so sorry for everything. That he was coming home.
Andy carried all of Hawaii by himself. No one really knew exactly how much of a toll it was really going to take.
I'm Andy Irons, 27 years old, been surfing for 20 years.
One of the greatest badass rags to riches rock star surfers that ever lived.
He got so good and so confident so fast.
Andy Irons is the new men's world champion.
We call him the people's champion. He's winning, we're all winning.
Who's the man?
He was wild and funny, and I liked all that.
My brother's dark side started creeping more into his everyday life.
Sometimes I'll get weird thoughts through my head, like it's a lot of thoughts, a lot of just stuff going on.
Bipolar disorder is not just a brain disorder. You can have this switch to being manic and psychotic.
He's just looking right through me. He's going, "It's all right, brother, it's all right."
Oh, I'm down here right now.
People go overboard with a lot of the drugs.
And then the pills come. That's the one that grabbed a hold of my brother.
Definitely changed him. Like, it was, yeah.
They're handing these things out at Rite Aid or CVS. Bad could they be for you?
Bipolar disorder can be associated with tremendous creativity and drive.
Your mind is working better and faster than everybody else.
He won that contest high on coke and pills with no big deal.
I remember finding him on a mattress, barely alive.
There are very few of us who end up achieving greatness. So for those who do achieve that, even burdened by having bipolar disorder is extraordinary.
Andy, I think about you every single day. You were my hero. You still are.
Have you ever seen that or heard of it?
No, I've never heard of that. I've never heard of him.
He's eventually he OD'd in out of town and on some of the prescriptions, and his wife was actually like 6 months pregnant when he OD'd.
Oh.
And they actually played a voicemail he left and to his wife that night. But I mean it shows that you can succeed with bipolar, but you can crash very fast. And especially when
if you get mixed up in the wrong.
Yeah.
Like, alcohol was a terrible, terrible thing for me. I mean, that's when I was working in nightlife, because it was fun and exciting, and I have met amazing people, and I loved that experience. But it was such a toxic environment for my mind, because it was that like adrenaline and that up, and we're drinking and we're having fun, and alcohol, and it mixed with the meds, because I'm taking these meds every single day. Those don't mix well. You're not supposed to drink a lot, but I was drinking because, again, I was trying to navigate life and
Yeah.
have fun and figure out me, and all the while my brain is totally unbalanced, and I'm looking for the next thing to make me feel alive,
Yeah, for
So
sure.
I've really, really cut back on alcohol. I've maybe have a glass of wine a week, maybe. And that's been an amazing transformation. Just, I feel better physically. And I'm not, I'm not, I would drink to escape.
Yeah.
Right? I've done a lot of inner work where I don't feel like I have to do something to escape what's going on in me.
Yeah, for sure. I understand. And alcohol actually, especially if you drink a beer, will actually wipe out your gut bacteria, and then you're basically everything your medications did. The beer yeast can actually wipe out that bacteria. Hard liquor's not as bad as the yeast in beer, but that's why I quit drinking. I noticed even if I had like 2 beers, my mood would be messed up for like a whole week.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I was like, just from drinking 1 beer, and I was like, man, that it has. So about 4 or 5 years ago, I really quit drinking. It's probably about been that long, and I think I've drank maybe once or twice since then.
Yeah, the physical effects, like feeling super sluggish, and just like almost you feel like I felt like I would be hungover for a few days when I would drink,
Yeah.
and I'm
And-
like, I can't live like this.
And I actually, I'm when I was your age, and I used to hang out with Sarah Bursick, who that's how I think I know you, is through because the Bursick family knows your family,
Mm-hmm.
and we would go out drinking Friday and Saturday night, and Sundays I would literally like cry myself to sleep, and I never really understood why. And it was that alcohol, 24 hours after you quit consuming it, is like ripping your gut bacteria to shreds. And I didn't know how to feel. I didn't know why I felt the way I did, and it was because of that. And especially on Sundays. Sundays were always the most emotional day.
For sure.
It was always the days after I drank.
That Sunday anxiety.
Yeah, and I always thought it was social. I was like, oh, hang out with my friends all weekend, and then I'm home alone, and that's why maybe I felt the loneliness and cried a lot. But it definitely wasn't that. It was the alcohol making me feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that Andy Irons story is it was actually released in May 2018. It's on Amazon Prime. I think you can find it on YouTube too, but it's like an hour and a half long story, and they dive like really deep into his
They
whole background.
dive into his bipolar. I'm gonna look it up right now, so I remember.
Yeah, and I like how they offer that doctor who talks, that you heard during the promo about people with bipolar, and we have such big minds, and sometimes these minds hold us down. So people who do great things and have bipolar, are usually, it takes an extraordinary amount of effort.
Mm-hmm.
So I think his story is really interesting, and even though it's kind of an old story now, because I think it's been a while since he passed. But they apparently have an event in Hawaii now that they remember him. He made surfing, put surfing on the map, and now like surfing events pay like huge amounts of money because he laid the groundwork
Mm-hmm.
to make surfing big, because he was doing such crazy tricks. He was like talented beyond his years, and he kept winning titles, and then that's when millions of dollars got involved, and that's when he got into drugs, because he had unlimited money, and he was
Oh yeah.
only like 20 years old. Touring the world with unlimited money can be a dangerous thing to a person who has bipolar.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm looking this up. So, and you said Hawaii, they have an event every year for him, like in remembrance of.
Yeah, I believe
him,
so.
or like,
I'm sure they have a surfing, because they have like surfing tournaments all over the world, and I think that they have like a pro. They call it the 7 big events. They're like the big events you want to win. And Hawaii has one of them, because Hawaii has a lot of really good waves. That's why he got so good. He was literally training on some of the best surfing turf in the world, and he got really good at it.
that's cool. I'm gonna watch that.
But it's a
People keep
very
saying
sad
your mic
ending.
is really staticky.
Oh, somebody saying that?
Yeah.
Let me go back to the comments.
Someone said to move the.
Yeah, maybe I'll try it without that. Does that help any?
I think so. As
Maybe
of right
it's just-
now, yeah.
Yeah, maybe I was just covering too much of the microphone.
Oh, I lied.
forget-
It's back.
Is it? Do you hear?
It's the same.
What about now? It's the soundboard. I have it's so I could literally change something and it can make it a little better.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that helps. I don't know, but if people can hear me, as long as it's not static anymore. I heard it before, but now I don't hear it.
Okay. I mean, I can hear you. I can hear you just fine.
Yeah. Plus, I never have this issue until you go into your own StreamYard, and then because I've joined podcasts all day and I never have that issue.
Oh yeah.
But the other one I actually wanted to share was it's a little 9 minutes, and it's about the new treatment that are being used to treat mental health. And I think I only watched half of it. I found it really
was
intriguing.
being used to treat mental health issues.
Pause that. And because it included there was a hockey player who retired a few years ago who came out and he publicly said that he was using psychedelics to treat his mental illness, and he wanted the NHL to start using it for players. So I think they share some of his story in here and some bunch of other stuff. Let me bring it up here, turn the music down. Can people still hear me, or am I still staticky?
I can hear you.
I'm just making sure that they can hear me.
Oh.
I don't know what would be making it staticky.
Probably the moon.
Make sure I don't have something. I might be too close. Either way, I'll figure it out slowly.
I do want you to talk a little bit about your supplements, because when I tell people about them, they look at me like I'm trying to get them to take drugs. And I'm like, I don't know how to explain this.
Well, I do have.
Because the CBG, and the lion's mane. Whenever, like, the second I say, "Oh yeah, lion's mane, it's a mushroom," people are like, "Oh no," and I'm like, "No, it's just kind of like you would take your like vitamin C or something."
Yeah.
But they're still like.
Let me bring up trying to bring up the document that explains what the stuff you're taking. And I'll just screen share it.
I feel like I sound insane sometimes when I'm telling people about my, like, the mushrooms that I'm diving into and the CBG, because I'm like, no, it's not like it's not a drug. it's all good things. You're not gonna like be impaired or
Right.
And they're just, they get this look, and I'm like, you put mushrooms on your burger. Think of it like
Sure.
that.
Yeah. And they're right there. I think maybe you can see that. But I'll just talk about it anyway because is that going to go out? What is it doing? Huh. Apparently doesn't. But it's trying to zoom in and go down, but apparently it doesn't want to.
I've sent a ton of people the brochure through Instagram.
But I'll just read it anyway. I mean, it's basically CBG is used for pain relief, antibiotic, antibacteria, anti-cancer, anti-anxiety, and depression. And it basically works with the anxiety and depression really well because it actually inhibits. I actually have this in my brochure, but I have to read it. It inhibits the uptake of serotonin and GABA, which regulate our mood. So it actually has, from a lot of research, CBG has a straight effect on our serotonin levels, and it may be why it's so effective in treating, mental health. Did I lose you? I haven't lost her. Maybe her laptop died. I don't know. But we'll just keep talking about the CBG. Where am I at here? Treats a lot of different things. This was probably why, like I said, it treats bipolar really well because it actually, affects our serotonin level. But I actually have a whole brochure that I usually give people this, and I just don't have one around me. There it goes. Now it's zooming in. And I still haven't. Still lost it. Oh, there you are. Did I lose you?
I had to go potty.
Oh, you're fine. Yeah, you figured out that you can mute and stop the cam. So if you need to, there's a mute button on yours and stop camera. And it'll just cut your camera off and mute you. But I was trying to zoom in on this, and I finally did. So I was talking about the CBG. It's also a muscle relaxant. So, it's basically, it has a huge effect on your neurons, your nervous system. So neuroprotectant basically shows that it protects against cognitive decline such as Alzheimer's, MS, Huntington's disease, and it also strengthens your bones. But the fact that it has that big effect on your serotonin levels is probably why it treats bipolar so well, and has very little side effects. And then the lion's mane that you take, that also has basically proven to boost cognition with, includes enhanced memory, recall, focus, and attention, which a lot of these issues, at least issues that I deal with is bipolar, is like I get a lot of like issues where I just stare at the wall and I can't do anything, you kind of freeze.
Mm-hmm.
And the lion's mane kind of helps you get out of that.
I've struggled with the brain fog, just like forgetfulness, trouble like forming. Like I have a thought that I want to like share, but I'm like I don't even know how to put words into this. Like sometimes I feel like my brain is failing me, and I'm like, okay, what can I do to help my brain?
Yeah. And the lion's mane is the fact that doctors don't use it a lot more is blows my mind. But I actually had an experience with lion's mane. I had a friend who passed away a couple of years ago. Well, it's been a year, I think, and he was in a coma. And me and an RN friend, who's really knowledgeable about lion's mane as well, we recommended to his doctor to give him a big dose of lion's mane. We talked to his family about it. We educated his family about the benefits of it, and she read a lot of the research, the people in coma patients, and the doctor allowed us to give him like 4,000 to 5,000 milligrams of lion's mane a day through his feeding tube, which is about eight times your normal dose. So we have read a lot of research that there's no toxic dose of lion's mane. You can like basically take 10 capsules a day if you want. You're just gonna have a really euphoric day, but you're not gonna have any horrible side effects. It's not gonna kill you. And it did help him a lot. He kind of came out of a coma. His family said they definitely saw a difference between when he started the lion's mane treatment. But I mean, he ended up passing away because he just couldn't eat enough food. His body had just become to the coma. But the fact that the lion's mane had some positive effects to his body, and he lived like for 3 months, and doctors said in his condition he should have died in 2 weeks. And he had a diabetic coma, and which usually is pretty lethal when he basically deprived his body of insulin for 5 hours. He collapsed and was unconscious, and nobody knew he was there. And he deprived. Once that happens, your brain is it's not very good for your brain.
Yeah.
Which another thing is lion's mane treats diabetes, and it actually has. I've seen it lower the kind of regulate the numbers slightly. It's not much. I'd say it's very slight, but it does seem to regulate glucose and insulin levels. But most people still have to take some medication for diabetes. Don't use lion's mane as a supplement for diabetes only.
Right. Like, we're not telling you to stop your medications.
But I put this brochure together, and it showed, all the. I wish that would show without that there, but shows all the benefits of these that I went through and actually did research on and found. I actually found this because it's hidden on the internet. I literally had to find case reports by doctors who had done their own research, kind of giving it out and seeing the effects themselves in these small clinical trials in places in the world, because CBG it's not very well researched yet. So, but I mean, you take it yourself, and you're like, you can feel the benefits. I know people all the time who tell me that. So it does work.
Yeah, I'm super pumped. Just now that I'm off my prescriptions, I'm super excited for the holistic healing of the mood disorder. I'm excited to see what I can do on my own without the help of a physician. I mean, I'm still gonna go see my psychiatrist. I'm still gonna see my therapist. I'm not totally stepping away from the clinical setting, but not having to take prescriptions that make me feel like shit if I even miss a dose by a few hours is nice.
Yeah. I actually I don't have a therapist, because I literally how do I go into a doctor's office and tell them I take psychedelics to treat my mental illness? Because I told my primary doctor that, and she had a guest doctor with her that day, and they sat there for 15 minutes and asked me so many questions, because they were intrigued themselves. They had never met somebody who had used psychedelics to treat their mental health. So my doctor was asking all these questions, and I did the same thing to my therapist. And about 2 years ago, I went and saw him once, And he's a really old guy in my town. He's been practicing for 50 years or something. It's been a godly amount. And I was his first patient he'd ever been with who openly admitted to use psychedelics to treat their mental health. So the whole time we sat there, his mind was just blown wide open by these things I was saying. And he's like, "How do you know that?" I'm like, "Because your brain, you do these trips and your brain tells you." And he left and he was like, after my light just died?
No.
My light went dimmer. But he basically said at the end of the therapist session that he was going to look more into psychedelics and he was hopeful for the future treatments. He said he would have already been retired by the time these treatments are legal, but he said I opened his mind and eyes to something that may work very well to treat mental health. So I thought that was interesting. I thought, I was like, I'm the first person ever, who's been practicing 40 years. Nobody ever comes in here and tells, I know I can share that information with him and he can't tell anybody. So, and somebody else apparently does. So
I have a very, very close friend who has also done a lot of deep diving into mushrooms, psychedelic and non-psychedelic, and they firmly believe that mushrooms can change the world. They told me they would not be the person they are today without their journey with mushrooms. Of course, so they did their psychedelic trips and they said that really opened and changed their mind to things. And then they take just the non-psychedelic mushroom supplements daily. They told me, they're like, mushrooms will change the world. And I'm like, hell yeah, brother. Like, let's do it.
Yeah, I've shared my journey with you. That's how I've talked to you about, and we have a mutual friend too who's helped me a lot. And I think the fact when I first started doing them, it actually took me back to a really scary point in my life, and it took me a long time to face that and realize that my bipolar actually started somewhere when I was like 5 years old, and somewhere around that age when you're supposed to connect with your parents and have good relationships and good friendships, and I didn't have any. I was very lonely, and these mushrooms allowed me to see back to childhood and then see that I was lonely, so I started behaving badly and realized that I could get attention that way, and those neurons in my brain started connecting in very wrong ways, and then I started having behavior issues. Behavior issues turned into this kid needs drugs, when really if they would have gone back to and actually research where these mental illnesses actually start instead of just trying to treat it
The root
with prescription, be like, it would be a lot better treatments. And I don't. My mother was only given, it was the 80s. She was only given the information she was from doctors to how to treat children back then. It was a whole different world. So I don't ever. It's not my mother's fault or anybody's fault that they prescribed me stuff that ended up making me worse over time.
I mean, we're never going to stop learning new things about mental health, physical health. So we have to remember to practice grace and patience with each other, with physicians, with therapists, whoever.
With our parents.
Or parents, is that what you said?
Yeah, I mean, that's the foundation of a lot of mental illnesses. Not everybody has mental illnesses because of that shaken foundation, but a lot of people, it starts at childhood, and you can follow it right back to some point in your life.
Oh yeah, we're never going to stop learning about mental health and ways to help it So we just have to remember to give ourselves grace. It got really dark in here. Give ourselves grace and give other people grace, and just, I think a lot of people get caught up in the in that awful cycle of the poor me. This was done to me, so I'm acting like this. Or this happened, and they're reacting, and they they forget, okay, yes, you can recognize that something happened to you, or this was a bad situation. Recognize that, accept it, be mad, do whatever, but don't halt your healing because you're so stuck in that feeling of this was my situation, blah blah blah. It's like, okay, well, we can fix that. Yes, be mad, do whatever, but we can learn and get help. And oh gosh, there's things, there's the bright side, and I think a lot of people forget to look on the bright side.
Yeah. But I was going to share this last video that we were, talking about what we're talking about here, and about psychedelics being used to treat these mental illnesses. So I'll just play it now. Oh, I don't think I have the volume on it. There we go.
Lori Brooks has found peace.
The sky was really gray. It was really cool.
Lori Brooks has found peace in painting. The colors are calming, the strokes soothing. But it's a temporary distraction from the disease that started ravaging her body 3 years ago.
It felt like my whole life had been turned upside down and backwards. Just a picture of pulling the rug out from underneath you and kind of flopping around. It was hard. And your first thought is, of course, am I going to die?
In 2018, the mother of 4 who lives in Abbotsford, BC, was diagnosed with advanced colon cancer. She endured surgery, months of chemotherapy and radiation, but a year later, it came back.
I was in a lot of distress and just feeling like my life is over and not going to get to see my kids get married or have their own kids, and just that feeling of loss, just a stabbing pain, and I could barely breathe. And so I thought, I can't live like this.
The anguish led her to a different kind of treatment, hallucinogenic medicine known as magic mushrooms.
Did you think that this was going to help you deal with dying?
Yes.
Brooks says the 6-hour experience was like being in a dream, but she was awake. A trip in her mind where she suddenly found herself in a forest, dark and scary at first, but at the end, a light.
I'm like, oh, I'm not alone in this. I have all these people in my life, too, that are here for us. And I think it was more of that just the feeling that I'm not alone.
That session was with a therapist present, but underground. Technically, magic mushrooms are banned in Canada.
Do you have any concerns about it being illegal?
Well, what are they going to do? I'm a cancer patient who's suffering. Are they going to throw me in jail? I doubt it.
When Daniel Carcillo played with the National Hockey League, he was known as Carbomb. An enforcer, he was a fighter and a menace on the ice. At the age of 30, when his team, the Chicago Blackhawks, was on a run of Stanley Cup wins, number 13 walked away from the game. There were too many hits to the head, and he was diagnosed with traumatic brain injury.
I got to a point where I became hopeless and very suicidal. I was extremely lost. I had just cut off the hockey community, which is really the only community that I knew, and I didn't know what to do next.
What happened next was a trip to a mushroom farm where he learned about the compound that makes the magic. Psilocybin.
Not only saved my life, but also helped me really reverse all of the symptoms that I was suffering from.
Today, Carcillo doesn't recognize the man he used to be.
I'm the best, healthiest version of myself.
Turn on, tune in, and drop out.
This is the version of psychedelics most people know, synonymous with the counterculture generation of the 1960s. But in the 50s, in a small Saskatchewan city on Canada's prairies, hallucinogenic research was already underway at the Weyburn Mental Hospital. Psilocybin, along with LSD, was being used to treat mental health issues and alcoholism, not only among patients, but among doctors and nurses too. It was here that the expression psychedelics was first coined.
It's such an interesting area of healthcare because it does carry that cultural baggage.
Dr. Evan Wood is one of Canada's leading authorities on treating addiction, including how the war on drugs was a setback.
Cultural backlash that led to essentially a total freeze being put on research in this area and really halting the science as well.
So we're decades behind and we could have been ahead of this.
Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs, and that's something that we probably knew in the 1960s or 70s.
So this is a spore print that we took from a mushroom that we grew in-house.
This is the heart of research in Canada today. Numinous, a state-of-the-art lab in Nanaimo, BC, is growing millions of the rock star of psychedelic mushrooms, Psilocybe cubensis. Lab workers are busy extracting that crucial compound, psilocybin. It's illegal to produce, possess, and sell psilocybin, the active ingredient in mushrooms. But Numinous is the first company in Canada to have legal permission to harvest this hallucinogen. The company is about to begin clinical trials on patients. So how do these mushrooms work on the brain? The brain has all these pathways, much like a highway. When a patient has a psychedelic experience, different parts of the brain that weren't connecting now do. This greater neuroplasticity enhances the neurological disorders to tap into different pathways for dealing with their anxiety, depression, pain, or trauma.
And what psychics do is they actually disrupt the default mode network, temporarily taking it offline, in essence, so that one can have an experience that's different from being trapped in those same loops of thinking.
Dr. Devin Christie wears two hats for Numinous, medical doctor and counselor. She works with patients who have chronic pain and trauma. A clinical treatment with psychedelics can last up to 8 hours.
These medicines cause changes in our brain and in our perception that can be quite profound. Some examples are a sense of timelessness or boundlessness, having mystical type experiences that can be very spiritually significant or meaningful. There can be visuals or auditory senses, or even something called synesthesia, when different senses blend together in one's experience.
Hello. How are you today?
Is fungi. Canadians are consuming them in pills, chocolate, or tea. But these products contain tiny amounts of magic mushrooms. It's called microdosing. And this Vancouver dispensary is seeing a shroom boom, even if it's still technically illegal.
I don't know if you remember when cannabis companies were opening and before they were fully regulated. We're kind of functioning in that gray zone.
With microdosing, the experience is less about a trip and more about being able to focus the mind.
How can you ensure that this is safe for them?
Our biggest thing is just like teaching people what these medicines do, educating them on the dosage and the protocols, like essentially just trying to get as much information out as possible so that people can make decisions for themselves.
It's not just storefront dispensaries. Canadians who were looking for relief from stress, anxiety, and depression are turning to online sellers, and there's not much regulation in the gray area of microdosing. Even Daniel Carcillo is getting into the game. He now follows a weekly regimen of microdosing, and he's the founder of Wisana Health, a wellness company in Chicago, testing the use of mushrooms to treat anxiety and depression in people with traumatic brain injury. It's a total conversion for Carcillo.
Do you miss hockey?
No, not at all. So excited to be doing what I'm doing and very grateful for all the suffering that I went through in the NHL and afterwards. So, in a way, I can thank Gary Bettman and thank the NHL for the position that they've put me in. The suffering was definitely necessary to get to a point of recovery.
Lori Brooks is no longer suffering, even though her cancer has spread. She turned to mushrooms again to help her prepare for the inevitable. She now has the support of a nonprofit group helping terminally ill Canadians legally access psilocybin.
I was lucky enough to have people in my life that were willing to offer it to me, but most people don't. And I can't imagine going through cancer and everything just without that help.
The first time around, she wanted to know her family was going to be fine. This time, she needed to know she was going to be okay.
I'm at the point now where I'm just happy living my life. And I'm at peace knowing that I'm most likely not going to survive this. But I'm just enjoying every day that I have.
That's pretty awesome
it's
story.
amazing.
I don't know if you knew a lot of that stuff about how it affects your neurons, and that's why I think it's so effective at treating bipolar, because these mushrooms shake up the neurons that need to be shaken up, and I can see it now, in retrospect, since I started doing psychedelics to treat my mental illness, that I was in these loops, and I was like one road that went in a circle, and you have to learn how to escape those roads.
It's
Yeah,
like
it's
you're circling the roundabout, not taking the exit. Yep.
Yeah, and then you take these psychedelics and you realize there's tons of roads. There's not just one road anymore. And I mean that's why I ended up starting 2 new businesses when I started doing psychedelics, because they blew my mind so far open that I wanted to change everything about my life. And I keep, I'm still down that path, and I'm still on that mission of, that's why I do this podcast, because I think it helps me a lot treat my mental illness, just talking about it,
Oh, talking about it. And I know Dawn commented earlier, talk therapy. I mean, talking about your struggles does wonders. Like accepting it.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're not the only people suffering or navigating, or like when I started sharing your products on my Instagram, and the flyers you created for the Rumination podcast for tonight, and then sharing about my experience of weaning off my meds, the amount of people that have reached out saying like thank you, or saying like feeling safe enough to talk about their struggles. It's like word of mouth, talking about it is so healing in itself.
Yeah, and I hope that, sharing the information we did, that somebody who didn't even know they may have bipolar sees that video about, about what bipolar actually is, and they have a better understanding of their own mental health. It's good to actually, once I got labeled the bipolar, I felt horrible for a while, but then I realized, well, now I can call it something.
Yeah, like now you there's a name to the face, and
yeah, and all those symptoms that come with it, and over the past few years, I've just knocked out a lot of the symptoms of bipolar, and now I barely ever tell anybody I have it. I used to, but now I'm like, I've kind of dealt with a lot of the symptoms of it one by one, and but it's still always there. I guess you still have to realize that. And, So I keep doing the same thing I do to treat it, and I still do heavy doses every 1 to 2 months. I don't, I don't know what they're finding out about science, because they're not doing any research on psychedelics and people with bipolar. They won't even allow you to enter a study if you have bipolar, which I understand. They don't want to, like, oh man, hold on a minute. For some reason, I didn't have my laptop plugged in.
Oh.
All right, now we're better.
Okay, good.
But what was I talking about? See, that's the bad thing about bipolar. Sometimes your short-term memory is horrible too.
My brain, I can have a conversation and then
It's
2
wild.
seconds later, I'm like,
I can absorb so much information, but sometimes it's a little bit harder to recall it, even though it's still there.
mhm.
Well, I was
Yep.
talking. That's probably why I'm at like the end of when I need my treatment, because it's been like 2 months for me. So I was planning on doing it this weekend, and
Mhm.
I was saying about the research is that they don't do any on
Oh, yeah, you
bipolar
can't.
stuff.
Yeah, you were saying they don't let people with bipolar enter.
But from these studies that I've seen, they give it to people, and then they like 4 or 6 months later, the person says that their symptoms are coming back. So I think that it's like, I think science will show that maybe these people need to have these treatments every 3 to 6 months,
Mhm.
depending on the severity. But when
I
I
mean,
first
shit, if
started,
you're supposed to take a prescription every single day, sometimes twice a day, it would make
yeah,
sense that you would do with the psychedelics a heavy dose every few,
yeah, yeah, and then I think that the macro doses, as they're called, that's large dose, are a lot. They allow me to reset. They basically allow all my repressed stuff that we repress every day, just to try to be human. It
Mhm.
comes out all at once, and that's why it works so great, because we do have to repress a lot of what we feel just to be human in this society, and which sucks for people with bipolar, but um that's part of the dealing with the illness,
Mhm. Yeah.
and you even understand that too.
Yeah, it was hard getting the diagnosis. And we've both already said this. It was hard, like it was kind of like, oh shit. And I was like, oh, this makes sense. That laid the groundwork, and good thing for that.
Yeah, it's hard to get that diagnosis. And when I first got that diagnosis, the reason I got it is I herniated a disc in my back,
Mhm.
and then I literally I couldn't find any comfortable place to sleep, so I was literally like sleeping 1 hour a day. And guess what happened? All of the symptoms of bipolar that were kind of hidden over the years, that they came like erupting out of me, because when you start getting the amount of sleep you get in one night in a whole week, it really starts to decay your mental health. And
Oh my gosh, sleep is the right amount of sleep each night is so necessary for even someone who doesn't have a bipolar diagnosis or doesn't struggle with depression or anxiety. I mean, just for like even gut health, your sleep is so important.
right. But we've gone on for an hour and 24 minutes now.
Good talk.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing about, bipolar, is there's a lot of stuff that you could go over, and you go on and on about it. And I think that educating people about it, the symptoms, and maybe the future treatments, because I think we needed to change, out of this pharmaceutical stuff that's not working anymore, and people, the success rates are not that high. And even when they the doctors try to say, well, prescriptions treat some people, and even when they do, they eventually wear out.
And you have
eventually,
to change
know,
them around,
yeah,
change dosages. It's expensive. Not everyone has access to good health care.
right,
They don't have the funds. They don't have the money to afford appointments, med changes, multiple medications. It. I mean, that's a whole different topic in itself,
right,
right?
yeah,
But
yeah. The same thing with how to naturally help, treat these illnesses by meditating and doing and stuff like that, self journaling, and I I have a book there with the chakras, and yeah, I've been doing some depths into shamanism and Buddhism, and
mhm.
I think I like from what I've read into the research, the psychedelic therapy they are incorporating Eastern medicine. They realize that the spiritual mystical part is actually when these people have mystical and spiritual experiences, the healing actually lasts progressively longer.
Mhm.
Like the stats are out of this world when people experience these mystical and spiritual things, because I think when you experience them, they make you feel so much more alive that and
Mhm.
special, that this world's special, and
Oh yeah.
well, yeah,
I mean, we're the deeper you can experience your walk of life, I mean, you understand yourself better, you can understand people better. You just expand your mind and your heart.
yeah.
It's very healing.
And then speaking of that, my actual next episode for the Rumination podcast is Sunday, and I'm going to a sound bath therapy place in Quincy.
Is
And
that
Michael Eastman, is that am I saying his name right? I can't
is
ever pronounce the business because it's really hard to pronounce, but I'll bring him up on screen.
yeah, bring it up on screen. Sound bath therapy. I
But
didn't know.
that's a there it is.
Sound bath therapy Quincy.
I'm gonna show it here in the StreamYard app. And you can
Sagrada Sanido. Did I say that right?
yeah. And he's I think he's at like a yoga studio. I'm not really sure. He's somewhere on 8th Street, 325 South 8th Street, Suite A. And he does he's promoting the wellness of people through the meditation of singing bowls, drums, and our voices. But he has like a
Okay.
whole sound bath therapy session he does on Sundays. That's when I think people actually pay to come into his class. He
That's
has
amazing. I didn't know that Quincy offered. Like, I didn't know that was a thing in Quincy.
he's like brand new, and I know Fawn, the girl that you get your stuff from, she actually shared it on Facebook, and that's how I found him.
Okay.
Because she was like, "I'll check this new business out on who does sound therapy," and I was like, "Well, I wanted to do a whole podcast on that because I find there's a lot of new science coming out that shows that it actually is highly effective at treating mental illnesses." And I even saw it on the Today Show. They had a whole segment about sound therapy,
Mm-hmm.
and they actually did it inside the studio, and everybody that was in the studio was like, "Wow, it actually worked." There's
That's
like a more
amazing.
calm in the whole atmosphere change,
That's amazing. So you're going on Sunday?
Yeah, and I'm gonna go to his studio, and I think we're gonna talk about it, and then he has like a 2:30 class, which I'll probably just stay there and record and to show, silently what happens in these sound baths. 'Cause it
Mm-hmm.
says he has a Sunday sound journey at 2:30 and 4, Saturday sound bath at 10:30, and Monday sound meditation at 7. It looks like it's $25 per person,
Yeah,
but it looks like he does offer a punch card.
that's so cool.
But I mean, even like you can't really, not everybody can afford to do them every week, but even like if you do it once a month, you will notice the difference in your mental health. And
Oh yeah.
I have some, I actually have a sound bowls behind me and some other stuff that I use when I do my psychedelic therapy, because I like to incorporate chakra music and stuff, instrumentals that don't have voices.
For sure.
They
For
help
sure.
you, they kind of help you get deeper into your subconscious, I guess you could say.
Like focus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
listen to a lot of like piano covers, piano or like symphony covers. Like I'll play that all day at work because I'm like,
Yeah.
it's not distracting, but it's like you hear it and it, I don't know, for me it's like a nice, happy, calming feeling.
Yeah. Well,
I'm so excited about I like this sound bath therapy. I'm like, I know what I'm gonna do this weekend.
yeah, you can watch the podcast at 1:45 and you'll hear, see and hear what he does.
Mhm.
And I'm interested to hear, because he knows a lot about sound therapy. He actually understands the science behind it, so it'd be good to talk about that part of it.
Amazing. Who owns it? Who is he?
Michael, I'm Facebook friends with him too, but I don't. Michael Vera Eastman.
Okay.
And it's a new, he did yoga for a while. I know he's done he was in the yoga business on it, but this is something that he just started a couple months ago.
This is exciting.
Yeah.
I'm on his Facebook page right now.
Stalking him, yeah.
I'm pumped. Yay.
Yeah. But we'll probably end it here so we can
Okay.
continue on our night. But thank you very much for joining me. Thanks for talking about it and being, vulnerable enough to share your story.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for being my holistic coach.
For sure. I'm always here, and I'm always here to help anybody else, has any other questions. They can, message me on many of the ways you can get a hold of me.
Mhm.
Instagram,
Oh,
Facebook. Or...
were you doing a giveaway?
I was, but I it's probably too late now.
Okay.
It's something I've forgotten. I gotta get better at.
Okay.
But because you have to actually, it's better to do it when there's a lot of people in the room, and then you actually hashtag and let this loader up. But I need to remember to do that like earlier in the podcast. But I'm still getting used to doing all this.
Yeah.
But I'll make up for it. I'll give something away in one of the other podcasts. But I was gonna give away a bottle of Lion's Mane, and
Oh yeah.
ship that out to somebody. I've been actually shipping a lot more of these, shipping to Florida, Cali, Texas. So
That's awesome. A lot of my out of town friends have asked about it, and I'm like, he ships.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, Greenleaf Herbal Company. That's Greenleaf Herbal Medicine is the herbal company. You can find me on Instagram or Facebook too, and message me on there about any questions. So I think I just shipped some of them to your friend in St. Louis a couple days ago.
Heck yeah.
Yeah,
Ooh, I'm gonna text her.
CBD, CBG, and Lion's Mane. So
Awesome. I'm gonna text her because I know who it is.
right. But again, thanks for coming, and we could
Thanks
actually
for
do a whole
having me.
nother episode probably on bipolar, down the road. I like to revisit subjects again, in 4 to 6 months and
Yeah.
talk further, because actually the research and even psychedelic treatment is progressing so fast that there's
Mhm.
new stuff coming out every 6 months.
I love it. Well, thank
But,
you.
yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for everybody coming. Thanks for joining the Rumination Project on our episode about bipolar. And again, we'll have the next episode this Sunday. It'll be live at 1:55-ish, and we're gonna do sound bath therapy. So until next time, y'all keep loving yourself, forgive yourself, and those are two things that will get you through life. And you have anything to say too?
Practice your grace and gratitude.
There you go. All right, guys. We'll see you later.